Hello, it's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the Prime Minister promises a significant drop in immigration to the UK. Sir Keir Starmer vowing to oversee a selective but fair system where everyone needs a good standard of English to boost community integration and avoid becoming what he has called an island of strangers. Among the proposals, a ban on the recruitment of care workers from overseas, something industry bosses say will make it difficult for the sector to function. Coming up, we'll be hearing from those working within social care, and we'll hear from people who feel a little less welcome tonight in the place they call home. Also coming up, police investigate a fire at the Prime Minister's house in North London. The front door damaged in that blaze. The property has previously been targeted by protesters. We'll have the latest. Plus, surveillance, honey traps and love triangles. 6 Bulgarians are jailed for a total of 50 years after spying for Russia. And healing through nature. The Princess of Wales says the great outdoors has been her sanctuary in the past 12 months, as she marks the start of Mental Health Awareness Week. All that's come and much more on the UK Tonight. Hello, good evening. Now, it's a slogan we're more used to hearing from one of the Prime Minister's old adversaries, but Sir Keir Starmer today vowed to take back control as he set out plans to reform the immigration system. Mr Starmer promised a selective but fair system which will cut the number of people coming into the UK. Among the proposals announced today, a longer timeframe to apply for citizenship and a higher minimum standard of English. The PM warning that the country risks becoming an island of strangers without better integration. Our Deputy Political Editor Sam Coates has our first report tonight.
Staffing care homes, helping the NHS, supporting our food sector. How many people should this country let through the gates to help these industries survive? That's the question the PM wants to address.
We will create a migration system that is controlled, selective and fair.
The numbers coming here quadrupled in just 4 years. Now, he says, they must be cut.
Today, this Labour government is shutting down the lab. The experiment is over. We will deliver what you've asked for time and again, and we will take back control of our borders. Now, make no mistake, this plan means migration will fall. That's a promise.
Eye-watering language from a Labour leader designed to cause controversy.
We risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. So when you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, you're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart.
A tough new plan to tighten the rules means a ban on new care workers from overseas, allowing skilled workers only with degrees to enter, raising English language requirements, making new arrivals wait 10 years for permanent settlement, and plans to clarify the use of family rights to avoid removal. Substantial proposals from the Prime Minister today, but we have had big plans to clamp down on migration from PMs in the past. The big thing seems to be Keir Starmer saying that he acknowledges that the link between growth and migration is broken. But has he really changed the culture inside government? Opposition leaders desperate to say that this isn't going to result in change, but could they do any better? The Tories say that Keir Starmer's imitating their plans.
Many of the things he was announcing are things that they are voting against right now. We brought in salary thresholds when we were in government just before the election. The first thing Keir Starmer did in coming in was scrap them. So now he's saying that he's going to have a white paper to look at the same proposals he just scrapped later. Labour are taking us for fools.
But can the party that claim they set the agenda explain how they do it?
I want to understand how you would deal with legal migration, because I'm just looking through your manifesto. I've just got some of the questions that just flow from Reform UK's proposal. Because one of your big proposals in the election campaign was a freeze on non-essential immigration. But you do say that there is an exception, which is essential skills. That feels like quite a big caveat.
We con ourselves that the NHS can't operate without foreign doctors and nurses, completely turning a blind eye to the fact that 7.2 million foreign-born people have registered with GPs in the last 11 years.
Will you put a cap on the number of people who can come in under your essential skills exemption, particularly in healthcare, for people who come in the country?
By the time of the next election, we will. I can't tell you the numbers right now. I don't have all the figures. But what I can tell you is anyone that comes in will not be allowed to stay long term. That's the difference.
So you are committing to a cap on the numbers of people?
You ask me in 4 years' time, all right? Ask me in 4 years' time. You can play whatever silly games you want right now. The fact is, there is nothing that has been said today that I think is genuinely going to be followed through with vigour and lead to levels of immigration going back to historic levels of net 30,000 a year.
9 years after the migration debate shaped the Brexit outcome, is the debate any closer to ending? Sam Coates, Sky News, Westminster.
Well, for many people who arrived in the UK through legal means, today's announcement means an uncertain future. Uncertainty also for the migrants yet to travel here, with some of those legal routes now set to be changed or got rid of altogether. But an immigration lawyer has told Sky News that would-be immigrants to the UK will simply find another way. Our communities correspondent Lisa Holland reports.
The Prime Minister's pledge to make it harder to migrate to Britain has sent shockwaves through those already in the immigration system. We met Ali at a support group for LGBT asylum seekers. Ali is from Pakistan and came on a student visa. 3 months later, he claimed asylum.
My family, they are forcing me to come back to Pakistan and marry a girl, but I can't do this.
The Prime Minister wants to crack down on people like you. Some people would say you abused the system. You came on a student visa and 3 months later claimed asylum.
We are not abusing. Actually, we are fighting for our rights, you know.
The government's pledge to reduce net migration involves overhauling a myriad of legal migration routes. It's 2 years since we first revealed the massive abuse of the skilled worker visa system, with criminal gangs being paid huge sums of money by individuals to use the route to get them to the UK, or for others, they got here to find the jobs they were promised didn't exist. Now, the Home Office has admitted it's had to shut down hundreds of rogue sponsors, and it says there are at least 40,000 people who've come forward to say the jobs they were promised never materialised. The real figure could be much higher. Yemixa from Nigeria is one of those tens of thousands of people who came to work as a carer. There was no job. The government is now closing down that route.
I can't even go back to my country because everything, all my property has been sold. For me to come here, for me to relocate down from my country, Nigeria.
Is the system in a mess, do you think?
Yes.
Vasuki Murahathas is an immigration lawyer. Around half of her cases are people who arrived on legal visas now trying to make asylum claims. She says whatever the government does, people are desperate to get to Britain. So will they still find a way?
They will find a way. There are agents who will assist them to come to UK in a different route.
The government has made bold promises, but closing loopholes and deciphering those with genuine needs will take time. Lisa Holland, Sky News, East London.
Well, joining us now is Savan Kadir, a campaigner and former asylum seeker. Thank you so much for talking to us on the UK tonight. I just want to get your general feeling about the kind of language and proposals you heard from the Prime Minister this morning.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for having me on. Well, it was more of the same, isn't it? Like the previous government and the government before, they all come in and they stick to three-word, slogans. And actually, when it comes to action, they barely do anything. I totally agree. We got so many problems in the immigration, but the way we fix it is not by slogans. Is actually by having a practical and be pragmatic about it.
Savan, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your route here to the UK. As I said, you're an ex-asylum seeker. You came here from Iraq. What was your route into the UK?
Well, the only route is available for people like me and many others, actually. As a journey at that time was in the back of a lorry. Very unsafe and very dangerous route. And it is basically, the problem is the market for the people smuggler are really increasing day by day when the government is trying to tighten the borders. Because the tighter the border, their jobs get more expensive and more people will be, seeking help from the people smugglers to get into the destination they want to be in. So actually, the way they try to crack down on the people smuggler, their plans actually do the contrary. They make their business more booming and more people will be in need into their service. So they're actually exploiting the gap, and the gap is a lack of a safe and legal route. And certainly, if there was a safe legal route for me, there would be no brainer to get into an Abacan lorry to arrive into the UK.
Yeah. A lot of the legal routes, by the sounds of it, are going to be changed or closed off completely. You've been in the UK for 10 years now. Part of the measures announced by the Prime Minister is to facilitate better integration. You've had direct experience of this. We find you in Scotland. You feel that Scotland is a good example of getting it right on people coming from outside of the UK into Scotland and being helped to integrate. You feel that the government is saying you need to integrate better, but they're not actually coming up with a plan for that or a system?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. But sort of, I'm disappointed of Keir Starmer's announcement today because there was lack of plan. I thought he will be coming up with an integration strategy, something that doesn't exist in England. Where in Scotland, in contrary, we have something called New Scot Integration Strategy, recognizing the integration start from a day one, and the hosting community has also responsibility, and the migrant also has responsibility to integrate with each other. There's a line between. And Keir Starmer didn't come up with that. And lack of integration strategy is a big thing in England, mainly, and in the UK in general. So one of the things it creates barrier for integration is lack of support for language courses. I mean, I have people who have supported them to apply for ESOL classes to learn the language. They're desperate to learn the language. They want to learn the language. I've never had someone to say, I'm in the UK and I decided not to speak English at all. That would be ludicrous and absurd, certainly. But there's no enough ESOL courses around the country. So if Keir Starmer wants people to integrate, doesn't happen simultaneously. They have to put a provision and invest in the school and the colleges to provide those courses and give people incentive to take those courses.
Savan, when we talk about integration, the Prime Minister's mentioned it today, and for many voters, particularly those who are looking at immigration and in communities where they feel like there is an us and them. You know, if you come into the UK from another country, you are othered slightly. As you said, there are attempts to integrate, whether you're helped by government schemes or not. But there is a sense from a certain section of the public that actually some people come to the UK and they do not want to integrate. They go into certain communities with others that have come from the same country as them, and it does divide communities. Do you get a sense of that? Can you understand where the Prime Minister's coming from on that point? Because he is talking to a certain section of the voting public who feel that in their communities, that is the picture that they see day to day.
I mean, I totally agree. The language is one of the biggest problems, for integration, and the language of the 2P. The 2P is one politician, and the people who actually. So, if the politician tone down the language, right, people will be integrating with each other naturally. So the problem creates, it's not just with the white British people, it's also with the migrant as well. There's a culture of mistrust and distrust of each other's community. So we don't want to integrate, we don't want to, but we can integrate because migrant communities don't trust the British community, and the British community don't trust the migrants, certainly not now when they're called invaders, they're strangers and all of that stuff. That doesn't help integration, that's actually make integration harder. I think that culture of mistrust created by the politician, by those who have the platform to unite people, not put them against each other. And if we keep going on about using divisive language, I don't think integration will happen, whether you can speak English or not. And there's one more point I want to make. I've got friends who are third generation of this country, just a person of color. He still doesn't feel like he's accepted as a British person. He still needs to reiterate himself. Hey, I was born here. I was born in this country. So the language is the most important thing, the language of the politician, I would say. And also people need to learn the language in general as well. So we have to think about unity and a language that's not demonizing white British people and calling them names and all of that stuff, and language not demonizing migrants as invaders and all other names that Keir Starmer came with, the Island of Strangers. I think you should have given, at least referenced Enoch Powell, for paraphrasing his speech.
Yeah, there have been comparisons made to that nature today. And Savan Kadip, thank you so much for your time here on the UK Tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you for
appreciate
having
your
me.
contribution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, joining me now is Kevin Saunders, former Chief Immigration Officer for UK Border Force in Calais, and Zoe Gardner, an independent migration policy researcher. Good evening to you both. You'll have heard Savan speaking there about his experience coming to the UK as an asylum seeker. He's now been here for the past decade. Kevin, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on what the Prime Minister has said. A lot of critics today, even some from within the Labour camp, say, you know, this is just the Prime Minister putting on reform's clothes. They're playing to the gallery here.
Well, yes, I think they probably are a little bit. I think the timing of this is all wrong, because we're going to get the migration figures out at the end of next week. And I think I would rather have waited until those figures have come out before the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary launched this did this speech, because I think it might be more relevant next week, because we know the numbers are going to go down, and it would have been interesting to see how much the numbers had gone down before they started on what they're doing now. At what they're doing, you can reduce visas. You can reduce visas to whoever you want, and it will reduce the numbers coming down. Whether that's a good thing or not, I'm not certain. Certainly, I think we ought to be making sure that overseas students are allowed to come to the UK to study, because our universities need them, and they need them big time. We've got universities that are in severe financial trouble because they can't get overseas students. We could put something in place to make sure those students do go home after they've got their degrees. And we really do need to increase big time the number of immigration enforcement officers, because there are about 1 million people in the UK who shouldn't be here. And we're only scratching at the surface with what we've got at the moment to try and identify them.
Yeah, you make an interesting point, given that, you know, an immigration lawyer spoke to Sky News today. He said, you know, you can put all these policies in place, but people are so desperate to get to the UK, they'll just get here by some other means. That's a really good point you make about the people who are already here, who shouldn't be, and nobody is dealing with that number effectively. Zoe, I want to get your thoughts on the announcements today, because there is an argument, as Kevin pointed out there, some more figures coming out in a few days' time. Net migration is actually falling. So why are these policies needed? You know, what do you think's going on here?
Well, I think it's obvious, isn't it? We've seen Reform do well in the local elections, and Labour's running scared. Exactly as Kevin said, the immigration figures that we're going to get out in a couple of weeks are going to show us a very significant drop in net immigration. What we've had over the last few years is unusually high immigration that was caused by a bunch of factors brought about by Boris Johnson's government. So one of them was just a bounce back of the number of students who came after they'd deferred their courses during COVID. So we had a much higher than usual number of foreign students. They tend to leave again after a few years when they complete their course. Another thing was the visa for Ukrainians. Another was the visa for Hong Kongers. In both those cases, almost nobody's coming on those visas anymore. And then, of course, Boris Johnson also created this care workers visa, which brought in a very significant number of people. But the numbers on that have been dropping off a cliff over the last year, down by over 80%. So really, there's no need for Starmer to pursue this. This was a good opportunity for the Labour government to say, look, you see, immigration numbers have fallen. This is going to be more sustainable now, and we're going to focus on an immigration system that works better and that creates an equal playing field in our labour market, that brings in the skills we need, and that focuses on integration. And that's what Savan was speaking about so well before, is that we really have a very poor integration strategy in this country, and I'm afraid what they've announced today is only going to make it worse.
Yeah, Kevin, Savannah, our guest that was on before you both was talking about the language used by the Prime Minister today. He said that the UK is at risk of becoming an island of strangers because of a lack of integration. Savannah, as Zoe mentioned, there was pointing out that actually, you know, those who come to the UK do want to integrate, they do want to learn the language, but to get on language courses, there can be a wait of 2 years or so. I mean, one Labour MP today called the term an island of strangers shameful. This is divisive language.
It is, and I have to say I'm very surprised to hear a Labour Prime Minister saying these sorts of things. Unfortunately, he's right. We have parts of the UK where English is not the first language, and we even have parts of the UK that practice sheer law, which we shouldn't be allowing. But the local communities want to do it, and the government won't. Progressive governments won't interfere.
That's not officially, you know, I know we're talking about Sharia law. I don't think that's actually officially recognised in the UK. We do talk a lot about it here on Sky News in terms of, I know what you're referring to, certain sections of the community, and I spoke to Savan about it, that don't integrate, and whatever reasons that is for, whether they don't have the help to integrate or because they're othered when they get here, they all want to be in the same community amongst each other. So I just want to clarify that. But Zoe, you know, it can be seen as divisive. The refugee charity Care for Calais have demanded an apology. What do you make of the language that's been used?
Well, I think it does contribute to a really febrile atmosphere that we have at the moment in the UK, but it's a total misreading by the government of the mood in the country. And I know that we've seen reform making gains, and that's put, you know, the fear into Labour at the current time. But if you actually break down the opinion polls and look at what people think, people are very concerned about the arrivals in small boats, and understandably, because that's seen as an uncontrolled part of the immigration system. But there's
a lot of people confuse that with the talk about actual migration as we're talking about today.
Well, exactly. I mean, the small boats made up 5% of immigration to the UK last year. And people don't tend to realise that because we talk so much about the boats. But actually, it's a very small part of the immigration question. And when you ask people, do they want to see fewer care workers? Do they want to see fewer farm workers? Do they want to see fewer construction workers? Well, actually, they don't. And British people don't benefit from an immigration system that others people, and it others people in lots of ways, both by the language that's being used, which is, you know, I think, frankly, irresponsible in a context where we've seen racist riots on our streets last summer, but also in the context that what we're doing is we're making citizenship further and further out of reach for migrants. And British people don't want people to be coming in here and not become part of our society. We want people to be able to become British. We should be encouraging people to become British. And that is being pushed further and further away by this government in an apparent desperate move to compete with Nigel Farage to be the toughest on immigration. And that simply isn't what the country really wants.
And Kevin, do you think that the Prime Minister today, with these announcements, I mean, he talked about the care sector, not allowing care workers from overseas. And, you know, he talked about low-skilled workers as well, fruit pickers, for example. I mean, you know, Zoe talks about, you know, British people. British people don't seem to want to do these jobs. The Prime Minister said it should be homegrown people that are going into these jobs. But again, the government isn't providing British people with a reason to go into, say, the care sector because of the pay and the conditions.
No, you're right. The conditions in the care sector are not good. When you think about
he's got
it,
that one wrong.
Care workers are doing the same sort of work as nurses in hospitals, but they're not paid the same amount. Now, this is where it gets a difficult choice, because if we decided that we were going to pay them a lot more money, who's going to do that? Would they have to raise taxation to pay for it? And of course, Labour have said they won't increase taxation. So this becomes a very, very difficult circle to square, really.
And also social care, you know, part of Labour's big plan for the NHS in terms of helping the NHS, getting people into the community, out of the hospitals, if the social care isn't there. Zoe, a final question about the tighter language tests. You heard Savan there before saying, you know, he knows people who want to learn the English language, but they can't get on a course.
Yeah, I mean, this is Obviously, it's the same thing that the government is creating a rod for its own back. They are amping up the rhetoric, telling people, oh, these migrants, they don't speak English, but they're not providing any available services for people to learn the language. And actually, we already have fairly high requirements for migrants in most areas. What we have is quite a flexible system. So if you're coming to work in the fields for 6 months in a farm and pick fruit, we don't have a very high standard of English required. But if you're coming to work in the NHS and you're going to stay here for the longer term, then we already have a requirement that you learn English before you arrive. And I think this is all just a pointless dog whistle. They have to be seen to be saying something to compete with reform. It's not really about making the system work better. It's definitely not really going to help anybody to integrate well into our society. Frankly, it's shameful that a Labour government is playing into this sort of gutter politics.
Well, certainly it's been a controversial talking point today, as you both illustrated perfectly on the show tonight. Zoe Gardner there, independent migration policy researcher, and Kevin Saunders, former Chief Immigration Officer for UK Border Force in Calais. Really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you. Well, let's return to social care, one of the more controversial proposals to be talked about by the Prime Minister, a ban on the recruitment of care workers from overseas. We can remind you of what Sir Keir Starmer said about this today.
Britain must compete for the best talent in the world, in science, in technology, in healthcare. You can't simply pull up a drawbridge, let nobody in, and think that's an economy that would work. That would hurt the pay packets of working people without question. But at the same time, we do have to ask why parts of our economy seem almost addicted to importing cheap labour, rather than investing in the skills of people who are here and want a good job in their community.
Well, let's talk now to Nadra Ahmed, Chair of the National Care Association. Good of you to come on the programme tonight. A ban on overseas carers working in the UK. What will that do to your sector?
Well, let's hope they've got a plan to help us find a domestic workforce, because what it will do is it will destabilise the sector. We've been here once before where we had post-Brexit and post-COVID. We had the most challenging time where we had over 160,000 vacancies. That's only just come down a little, a fraction, by about 125, 130,000, depending on which stat you look at. So if we then take away that route that would bring in the international workforce, it will create a great void. And before anybody kind of makes assumptions around this, I just want to put it on record that we would much rather be employing a domestic workforce. It is far more expensive for us to try and recruit because of all the costs that are related to it, and all the responsibility that comes with having colleagues come to us from abroad to make sure that they are fitting in. So I think we need to be really clear. This is not something that can just be announced and then forgotten about, and for the sector to pick up.
Yeah, where's the strategy? Because Sir Keir Starmer was saying, you know, we should be having homegrown carers. This should be a job done by British people, but British people don't seem to want to go into the care profession. There doesn't seem to be, from what I can see, a strategy to attract people in. I think Kevin Saunders, who we were just talking to before, the former Chief Immigration Officer for UK Border Force, said, you know, carers do essentially the same jobs as nurses, but without the pay and without the respect. There isn't the sort of kudos in that profession that nurses have.
Well, of course, we have nurses. We have nurses in social care, and they're not respected by their colleagues from the NHS, which is bizarre. And our work, you know, the care staff work to the standard level of a healthcare assistant in a hospital, but obviously we cannot reward them to that point. And I think that's really the challenge. And the language that the Prime Minister's used today has been quite appalling in many ways. You know, to call this our sector a low-skilled sector, well, he just needs to speak to his Secretary of State, who is talking consistently about passing over more healthcare tasks to social care. you need to make up your mind, because if the health care tasks being moved to social care, that implies and actually it ratifies the fact that we are actually highly skilled workforce.
Well, you're
and
seen
yet
as
we're
a
not
key part of saving the NHS. You're seen as a key part of securing its future. So what would you say to the Prime Minister tonight about the decision he announced this morning?
He needs to stop playing politics, and if he wants to make announcements such as these, then he needs to come up with a strategy that will ensure that we have a domestic workforce and that it is properly funded. It has to be funded, because one of the reasons that we are not able to attract a domestic workforce is because there is no career pathway. There is no recognised qualification. There isn't a strategy for us to be working on with the workforce. And then, of course, there isn't the pay. So people are struggling. You know, the general public are struggling with cost of living crisis, energy crisis, higher interest rates than they've been used to, all of that kind of stuff. So people are looking for jobs that will pay them a little bit more. And I think you can't also assume that anybody can become a care worker, because it does take training, it takes skills, it takes compassion. It's a hugely rewarding job, but in all of that, it has to have the right person, because we're looking after vulnerable people across, not just older people, it's across the board. We have people with disabilities, as well as mental health, children's services, that all falls under our brief.
Yeah, you know, it's a key part of keeping society going, along with nurses, doctors, teachers, but carers just not seen in that same bracket, and certainly not rewarded with, as you say, the career path or the money to go with it. Look, Nadra Ahmed, Chair of the National Care Association, really appreciate your time tonight, reacting to the Prime Minister's comments. I'm sure we will speak again on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, still to come on the UK tonight. Police investigating a fire at the Prime Minister's house in North London today. We'll be there live. Plus, 6 Bulgarians running a spy ring from a Great Yarmouth guest house. They've been jailed today for a total of 50 years. We'll have the details on that. And calls for tougher restrictions on the UK's most dangerous offenders after another high-profile attack on a prison officer. Welcome back. The Prime Minister has tonight thanked emergency services after a fire at his home in North London. The door to the property, which Sir Keir Starmer rents out while he lives at 10 Downing Street, was damaged in the blaze. Sky's Matthew Thompson is in North London for us tonight. What details do we have, Matthew?
Well, very limited details at this stage, but as you can see behind me, there's still a very significant police cordon in place here in North London. There have been forensics officers combing the street all day. They continue to do so behind me. And so a very major investigation still ongoing here, which we now understand is being led by counter-terror police. As to the details of the fire itself, not much beyond the fact that London Fire Brigade say that they were called just before 1:15. They say that the fire was under control just after 1:30 in the morning this morning. And then police had earlier said that they were aware and investigating the incident, but in a statement later this evening, they've now confirmed that the investigation is now being led by counter-terror police. What they said was that damage was caused to the property's entrance. Nobody was hurt. The fire is being investigated and cordons remain in place while inquiries continue. As a precaution, they said, and due to the property having previous connections with a high-profile public figure, officers from the Met's Counter-Terrorism Command are leading the investigation into this fire. Inquiries are ongoing to establish the potential cause of the fire. And I thought it was interesting the phrasing that they say their previous connections with a high-profile figure. That is, of course, as we understand it at least, Keir Starmer still owns the property, but of course he now lives in Downing Street, and it's understood that he's renting that property out. So I don't think there's any necessary suggestion that he was present, but still, given the nature of its ownership, there's a sensitivity to the Met Police's investigations. We have a very terse statement from Downing Street. Official spokesperson for the Prime Minister said, "I can only say that the Prime Minister thanks the emergency services for their work and it's subject to a live investigation, so I can't comment any further." And we'll really have to wait for that investigation, as you can see, still ongoing behind me, to play out before we get any further information.
Matthew, thank you. Matthew Thompson there in North London for us tonight. 6 members of a Russian spy ring run from a guest house in Great Yarmouth have been jailed today for a combined 50 years for running espionage operations across Europe. It's believed to be one of the largest and most complex enemy operations to be uncovered on UK soil. Sky correspondent Rachel Venables has this report.
No James Bond activity on my end, I guarantee you.
Not 007, but a ringleader of Bulgarian spies working for Russia, a group that Orlin Rusev called his minions.
I will be thrilled to see how on God's earth there is a connection between me and Russia or any other state, because I haven't been a spy or a government agency employed for a state or states.
Police! Police! Stay where you are! Police!
He ran things from an old seaside hotel in Great Yarmouth, Norfolk.
Police, stay there! Stay there!
Inside, police found a huge collection of spy equipment.
I have purchased some on the eBay and I'm repairing many of those.
From sophisticated communications interception devices to a hoard of fake identity documents. There were also covert cameras and spy glasses, all used in a series of surveillance and intelligence operations across Europe for Russia, which targeted investigative journalists, politicians and military sites. The group even discussed kidnapping and murder. On Monday, they were jailed for a combined total of more than 50 years.
The defendants were motivated by money. For example, on the 23rd of February 2022, Mr. Marsalek messaged Mr. Rusev that he was applying for €1 million for search and capture budget for Kirill.
Rusev got the longest sentence of 10 years and 8 months.
The risk of harm to individuals was very obvious and very serious, and your purposes were prejudicial to this nation's safety and interests.
The operation was understood to have been directed by alleged Russian agent Jan Marsalek, an Austrian national wanted by Interpol. His whereabouts are currently unknown. They've been described as one of the largest and most complex enemy operations uncovered on UK soil. endangering lives and harming national security. A reminder of the continuing and complex risk from Russia. Rachel Venables, Sky News.
Let's now take you to the latest pictures from Tel Aviv, a helicopter landing there. Inside, Israeli-American hostage Eden Alexander. He has returned to Israel after being released by Hamas. This has been confirmed by the Israeli military today. These latest pictures show him arriving in Tel Aviv for a medical examination. Eden Alexander, just 21, was serving in an elite infantry unit on the border with Gaza when he was captured by Hamas during the October 7 attacks. Of the 251 hostages, 59 remain in Gaza, up to 24 of whom are believed to be alive. He has been held in hostage in Gaza for more than 19 months. His release, a goodwill gesture, we understand, towards the Trump administration that could lay the groundwork for a new ceasefire with Israel. The Conservatives have called for tougher restrictions on the most dangerous offenders in UK prisons after another high-profile attack on staff. Southport killer Axel Ruder-Cabana is accused of pouring boiling water over a prison officer at Belmarsh last week. The government insists those who attack prison staff will be punished.
We will not tolerate any violence towards staff, against prison officers. Prisoners who are violent towards staff will face the full consequences of their actions. The incident at HMP Belmarsh is subject to a police investigation, and as such we are unable to comment further in any level of detail at this stage.
I couldn't care less if Ruder-Cabana never had a hot drink again, nor would the British public. This culture of appeasement, of protecting the rights of convicted terrorists and criminals over the safety of our officers must end, and it must end now.
Well, the Southport killer is at the top end of offenders in the UK's prisons, and with overcrowding rife, the system is at breaking point. Ahead of the government's sentencing review, expected to recommend more non-custodial sentences, my colleague Sophie Ridge has been speaking to staff and inmates at Preston Prison. As part of her special programme, Sophie was joined at HMP Preston by the Prisons Minister, James Timpson, and she asked him if too many people are being sent to prison.
I think there are too many people going to prison who we could look at for other certain for low-level offending. We know, for example, if people go to prison for less than 12 months, they're far more likely to reoffend than people who have an electronic tag instead. So for certain offenders, I think we can get better results and have fewer victims if they don't go to prison. But we need to keep the public safe, and that's why you need prisons, and we need more prisons.
Well, there's much more from Sophie and the team at Preston Prison on our website, skynews.com. It's on the app and on our social media channels as well. Still to come on the UK Tonight. The Princess of Wales is urging people to reconnect with nature in the first of a series of social media videos aimed at raising awareness around mental health. A horse racing trailblazer, Grand National and Cheltenham Festival winner Rachel Blackmore announces her retirement from the sport. We'll have more on that.
This is how you travel when the mafia wants to kill you.
He's almost given up his own freedom, but that's the price he's willing to pay.
Here, they don't just arrest 'Ndrangheta mafia members, they also live among them.
Time after time, I've seen the devastating impact of extreme weather and climate change.
We don't have much snow at the moment.
They've had a warm spring and exceptionally hot summer, and that means they're expecting to lose more than 3 times the amount of ice than they usually do.
Flames are still forcing people from their homes and leaving many questioning their futures.
Here was my life. We have nothing. I can't say anything, it's so sad.
This disaster is testing the resolve of everyone on this island.
The only way out now is by boat.
Everything you see is devastated, and the misery being felt by people living here is repeated in towns and villages across Central Europe. Sky News, get the full story first.
Turkey is burying its dead. The loss is profound.
Whole families died in this collapse, generations wiped out. The violence has penetrated the heart of the city rather than being contained to the estates around the edge, and that speaks to the level of anger being felt here.
In Sweden, police have seized a lethal stash. This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
This is an example of an advert, really. Anyone of any age could say, I'll do that for £1 million, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Hello, welcome back. Coming up, the Princess of Wales revealing where she found her sanctuary over the past 12 months. That's on the way, but first, Teddy's here with a look at the sport. And we're talking about Trent Alexander-Arnold. I mean, we know he's caused a lot of debate since announcing that he's going to leave Liverpool, but it's all kicked off over the last 24 hours. He was booed when he came on against Arsenal at Anfield yesterday. His first appearance since announcing his departure. Was that a bit of a shock from the Liverpool fans?
I think maybe not a shock. It's interesting, the reaction to it. Trent Alexander-Arnold hasn't spoken on it. He came on the 67th minute of the game. Remember, Liverpool have already won the title, which is a big celebration, their first home game since then, but also the first home game since the announcement last Monday that he is leaving. No confirmation yet, but expected to move to Real Madrid, the Spanish team.
This is when he got booed. We haven't actually got the sound effects. Maybe I should do it, but I can't show, you know, I'm impartial, obviously. But just imagine the boos.
Yeah, so Jamie Carragher, Liverpool legend, Sky Sports analyst, has previously said that he felt it could have been handled differently so that Trent wasn't leaving on a free, because this is his boyhood club. Maybe that would have...
he's been there since he was sort of 14 or whatever.
6 years old. 6 years old. So 20 years. He's 26 now.
Gosh, yeah.
So it's been a controversial one, but Jamie Carragher says he was disappointed to hear this. May give armoury for other clubs' fans to say, well, you're being ungrateful for the service. He's won 2 league titles now, Champions League, every other domestic trophy in his time there. Most creative player in the team other than Mo Salah. But there's an angle there, I suppose, that Andy Robertson, his great friend, says, I'm losing my best mate. It's sad that people have booed, but it's their prerogative.
Wasn't the sticking point, though, that he said that he wanted to win the Ballon d'Or, which everybody said that's an individual rather than, you know, doing it for the team.
Yeah.
And I think
he was asked by Sky Sports.
Oh, it's our fault.
Well, it's not our fault. We didn't put words in his mouth, but he was asked as a sort of like, what would be your ultimate aim? Given that he has already won the Champions League with Liverpool in 2019, he said that his big aim personally would be to win the Ballon d'Or, which is, of course, Europe's best footballer.
So perhaps taken a little bit out of context by fans.
A bit more team-oriented. But it's going to be interesting to see. There's a bit more paperwork to deal with. We know that last week Real Madrid did approach Liverpool with a view to buying out his contract. He is contracted at the club until June the 30th. But there's a Club World Cup which Real Madrid are competing in America. They had approached them, but nothing yet on whether that is going to happen, whether Liverpool might get a little bit of money just yet for him. So we'll keep you across that one. So that's the situation with Trent Alexander-Arnold. Up next, news of the teams vying to get into the Premier League, the Championship playoff.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Dowling's idea about coaches is an interesting one. 42% of Premier League first-team coaches across the last 6 seasons have been English. 56% have been British. The Premier League are also committed to coach development, launching an elite coaching plan in 2020 with a clear philosophy: better coaches lead to better players. Through that, they've supported 480 coaches and coach developers over the last 5 years. Alongside that, there's the Professional Coaching Partnership, bringing together the Premier League, FA, EFL, League Managers Association and others to offer further support for coaches. The League Managers Association, which represents managers in our top 4 divisions, told us they run a significant number of qualifications and personal development services for English coaches, all of which are oversubscribed, they say. But they admit that the football industry in this country is competitive, volatile and short-term. They say increased foreign ownership of English clubs and the purchasing power of English football mean clubs can scour the globe, and that has narrowed opportunities for home-developed coaches. The LMA say that whilst all the football authorities are committed to improving the situation, it's the clubs who need to do more. They need to...
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Now, the Princess of Wales has urged people to embrace nature to help improve their mental health, saying the great outdoors has been her sanctuary over the past year. She shared a 3-minute film entitled Spring to mark the beginning of Mental Health Awareness Week.
Connecting to nature helps us to experience a deeper sense of ourselves, the world around us, and each other. Spring is a season of rebirth, of hope and new beginnings. From the dark days of winter, the outside world quietly awakens with new life, and there comes a sense of optimism, anticipation, and positive, hopeful change.
Now, joining me now, wildlife photographer Trevor Parsons. Trevor, good to see you tonight.
Lovely to meet you.
Yeah, it's really nice to see you because this has a personal resonance for you, doesn't it? The subject matter that the Princess of Wales is tackling, the connection between nature and our mental health, because I understand that it's really helped you personally as well as professionally.
I certainly did. I've had 2 mental breakdowns in my life. The last one was 2013, 2014. I was off work for 10 months, and nature and photography is the only thing that I remain connected to. I couldn't understand really what the health professionals were saying to me, really, or my loved ones, but somehow that connection was just like a lifeboat to me, and it helped me all the way through and ended up giving me a full recovery.
Yeah, it's being out and about in nature, and for you being behind the camera, seeing nature through the lens, and we know the Princess of Wales is into her photography. Like, you can just, you can see that from the film that she's put together. We can have a look at some of the images you've taken now. And, I know a lot of people can sort of roll their eyes a little bit when they say things like, the doctor will prescribe you to get out more, to go for a walk, because, people can't really see how that will help. There's such a rush to have a sort of practical measure of help, like pills or medication or something. But you really see the tangible difference.
Oh, most definitely. What I found was when I was going through my second mental breakdown, all the thoughts kept rushing around in my head. But when I was actually staring through the lens of my camera, I was focusing on that one moment in time, and that gave me that much needed headspace. And keep on doing that. It really does help calm your head down.
What would be your advice to people who are perhaps suffering with their mental health? Because not everybody lives in and amongst nature. Many people live in towns and cities where green space can be pretty scarce.
Even
what sort of advice to people?
Park, go around that, because what it is as well, with a camera or without, because what it is, it helps you. It's a distraction of what's happening inside your own head. It really does help.
Yeah. What do you think of the Princess of Wales' film? We understand it's one of a series. There's 3 more to come, given that this is spring. I would imagine the others would be summer, autumn and winter. I mean, I'm just hazarding a guess. But what do you make of her film?
The Princess of Wales' film is absolutely spot on. You can see how much she cares about and how much it has helped her with mental well-being on her journey with her illness. Fair play to her for doing it.
Yeah, the power of nature, presumably, you talk to people about this and recommend it to people, and other people this has helped as well.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I've kind of been on a journey since 2019 to tell my story, and I have done a lot. Like, I gave a talk in the Natural History Museum last year, and people, when I do other talks as well, people come up to me afterwards and say, either help my son or help me personally, or know of other people, and it's far more open. People are now talking about their mental well-being, and it's healthier for us to discuss it, because a problem sort of like halved is a problem shared, and it's so important to just get into a green space.
Yeah, it's about switching off, isn't it, and just getting out for a walk wherever you can. I do that with my daughter quite a lot recently, and because it's spring, she's picking all sorts of leaves and flowers. My handbags are full of them. Getting on the train and all blossoms falling out. But it is like, yeah, it's just taking time for yourself, isn't it, away from your phone or the other noise.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
It helps. There's been scientific evidence that it reduces your stress levels and your breathing. And, you know, at the end of the day, we're from nature, so it makes sense that nature should be important to us.
Yeah, let's have a return to it. I'm all for it. Trevor, really good to talk to you there. Trevor Parsons, wildlife photographer. We're going to have a look at the weather now, Trevor, to see if it's good weather to go out for a walk over the next few days. Stick around for that. Thanks, Trevor. Right, here it comes.
The ideal atmosphere, whatever the altitude. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, the weather's going to settle again over the next few days as high pressure becomes re-established. But for the rest of today, there'll be some heavy thundery showers for England and Wales. These will most likely be in a zone from Wales and the Midlands to the southeast. Where they occur, they'll bring some torrential downpours with the risk of flash floods and difficult driving conditions. Showers will die out slowly this evening, but they're likely to leave a legacy of patchy fog elsewhere. Skies will clear away from the far northeast, where low cloud and sea mist will spread in from the North Sea. It's going to be mild in the south and the west, but chilly in the northeast. Tuesday, maybe take a walk tomorrow. It's going to be largely fine with long spells of sunshine for most of us. Early low cloud in the northeast will burn back to coastal areas. Temperatures will rise.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
That's all from the UK Tonight. Up next, it's The World Live from Riyadh with Yalda Hakim. We'll see you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock.